Just let me know when you start.
We're not on yet, Lauren.
You are.
Hi,
Hi.
welcome to our conversation with Victor Niederhoffer. It's December 31st. So first, we want to wish all of our listeners a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. And I hope that our conversations will help, at least in some aspects of that. Today was definitely a fun day. Interesting, for sure. It was just this choppy mess for most of the day, 10-point range. And then all of a sudden at 2 o'clock, it's just unexpectedly ran up 30 points to close at all-time highs. It made also a new all-time high of 37.53 and closed at all-time highs as well. Well, when I say the move was unexpected, it was unexpected to me. So unfortunately for me, I didn't listen to Victor's prediction that he was so tirelessly repeating for the last 2 days that the market is going to close at all-time highs, and it did. So,
And
but
did
the
did
market
it
is
break
devious,
the
and
Trojan number at 37.50 at the end also?
the high was 37.53, not the close. The close was a few points less. I have to
That's
check that. It was
that's good.
37.46, I think.
Well,
Depending what
the
time you look
Trojan
at it.
number is ephemeral. It's just that it always attracts uh, a breakthrough. So it did break through 37.50, and
Yes, it did.
I'm sure Mr. Soji is enjoying some Kona Capital coffee today.
And Mr. Soji has generously offered to come to our show next week. We'll just have to schedule it
Yeah.
and figure it out. And then we could ask him all of the questions about his Soji wisdom, I guess, what it is and how it works.
And
So
surfing,
stay tuned.
and how surfing can teach us about markets. He has some
Yes,
ideas on that.
about markets and coffee.
And surfing
um,
and music. He's a very fine musician.
wow, interesting. Well, Victor, so what do you say about the markets today?
Well, it became more woke. It achieved the height of wokeness at the time that it achieved the height of rise, the height of wealth, the highest close. So there was the main theme of, I think, this year has been that the more woke the market has become, the more woke the politics have come, the higher the market has gone. The market loves socialism, and it seems to love Marxism. And at the very end, our chance of achieving victory in Georgia is at the minimum. It's close to 50-50 now. It's 59% versus 41%. Used to be 80% a week or two ago. And the president is persona non grata, and the market is at an all-time high. Not only is the S&P at an all-time high, but Nasdaq's at an all-time high.
Right.
Japanese are close to an all-time high. The one thing I don't like is that the European markets have not participated in the last 4 days. The U.S. market is rather high compared to the Europeans. That's bad. However, in looking, I've mentioned, and we've agreed that this is going to be an all-time high. This is the fourth time in 11 years that the market is closed at an all-time high. That's completely non-random, even though there is a tendency for the inverse sine curve to end at a high to an inordinate degree, but there's something rather poetic about what the market always strives to achieve its destiny. Its destiny this year was very good. Anyone who believed in the drift of the market, who believed in the fact that it could overcome any obstacles, made a lot of money. The NASDAQ was up almost 40%. S&P up about 18%. Crude closed near its 6-month high at 48. The dollar was at its low. Euro dollar was 123. So there was a certain coalescence of all the markets as they brought onto new eyes to their destiny. Now, what will be the destiny for next year? In terms of the last day of 2020, it's not that predictive for the next day in 2021. However, the month of December is very predictive for the beginning of January. Almost 7 out of 9 times that December has been up, there's been a rise in the first week in January. And in fact, the move in January has been very good when December is high. So in fact, there's about a 3% average expectation for January based upon December's rise. So I guess we can expect that the same regularities that appeared in December will continue for the first part of 2021. What are the main features of the market in 2020 to you?
Well, last year was unusual in a sense that we had a 30% sell-off because of COVID, and then we managed to close at all-time highs. That, if I remember correctly, it doesn't happen too often in history when you have such a large sell-off and close at all-time highs. So, and in general, the market had many things that are unusual.
Yes,
maybe because the COVID
itself.
itself.
Some of our readers have said that you're very charismatic. I find you charismatic. Let's hear some charismatic things.
Thank you. So another unusual thing about the market, actually, of the last year, let me show you the chart and see if you agree, if you find that unusual. The top for the year, okay, the 57% of the return in 2020 was 3 companies, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. And let me share the screen. Here it is. So does that chart scare you? I like to put up some scary charts that you later dismantle and say, no, it's nonsense. So is that a scary chart or nonsense?
That's nonsense. I just say it's mumbo jumbo. because the mumbo jumbo is that if you take 30 stocks, 3 of them are always going to capture 50% of the rise. Now,
Well, if you look at the chart, it seems like this time it's a lot more than any time in history, at least in the last 30 years. It used to be top five companies was what, 20%, 18%, and now it's almost 25% of the.
that's what they call random walk, random perturbation. But certainly in retrospect, I think that the woke, if you notice, every one of those companies is 100% woke. The media
Right.
has been thorough. I think one of the main features of this year is that the media has become thoroughly discredited. Everybody knows about their bias, and eventually they will pay the piper. But all those companies are led by woke leaders, and they follow a woke line in their business. They're all anti-Republican. They're pro-progressivism, pro-government, indicating to the people how they should behave, and becoming the last resort for economic activity and determining how capital should be allocated. I think we can expect, since the market in January tends to follow the market in December, I think we can expect that to continue for the next year. So as strange as it seems, if the Georgia runoff is won by the Democrats, and the Democrats have control of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and we can expect all of the progressives to come out of hiding as soon as Biden is elected, and to inflict upon the country all the things that they've hoped for before
Right.
before they held their fire until Biden was elected. Can expect to have the Supreme Court doubled in size. We can expect to have 3 new states coming into the Electoral College. Expect to have right to work laws banned. Can expect to have tremendous push for companies to institute climate change practices and gender equality. We can expect to have capital gains go up by 40 or 50%. We're going to expect there to be a wealth tax, and so all these things should occur if after the Democrats win the Georgia election. And probably the smart money, which is always the most recent that comes in at the last stage, has probably been about 5-1 on the D's winning Georgia versus the R's. And
Right.
strangely enough, the fly in the ointment could be if the Republicans pull a straw out of the hat, and if they win. Now, the orange man continues to make a monkey out of himself, and to engender
Right.
Resentment and disbelief, and showing that he's mainly interested in his personal aggrandizement rather than the agenda and the party. So the strange thing is, if the R's win in Georgia, the market should go down. Whereas if the D's win and we have the prospect of the R's never again winning an election, which they probably won't, with all the legislation and the changes that these have for us, then the market will go up. So it's a very strange sort of world we live in, and
Right.
you have to, but eventually, I noticed today typical activity in the usually the states offer lots usually has a chart showing that the states with the lowest taxes have the companies that perform best. But this year, I'm sure if you ran the market performance of states by taxes, the states where companies were headquarters that had the highest taxes and had the greatest Democratic vote for them, they performed better than the red states for the first time. So
Interesting.
the market's always evolving. You have to, as we discussed yesterday, you have to
Right.
always be ready for change. And certainly, as you pointed out, and Victor Hansen has pointed out, that the companies that on the coast that have been
Right.
able to have international trade and have a business that is expansive,
Right.
and they've done a lot better. So that will be the
Actually, there was an article in NBC News, as you could see, that we have 56 new billionaires since the pandemic began, while the small businesses are going bankrupt. So, I mean, I don't like making predictions because they never come true, but it's fun nonetheless. So my prediction is next year the chickens would come home to roost, and that the companies that have been doing so well this year, uh, even Apple, which is so beloved, and Amazon, which seems to do no wrong, that they're not going to be doing, and Tesla, of course, they're not going to be doing as well next year as they have been doing this year. And uh, uh, like you said, if the progressives come and they will tax and do other things, they may even break up companies, because Amazon has certainly become a monopoly, and at the expense of lots of small businesses. There was an article a couple of weeks back at the Wall Street Journal where basically a gist of it, a small company began selling tripods on Amazon. It had 3.5 million in sales. Amazon copied the technology exactly and started selling it for less money as Amazon Basic Tripod, and eventually even banned the original company from Amazon, claiming that they have copied their tripod. So Amazon often does this. If a small business becomes successful and starts selling on Amazon, they will kill that business eventually by copying their product. And there's nothing a small business could do. They can't sue them. They have lawyers and stuff. And so, you know, all of this not gonna just end well. You just can't have economy shut down for a year. I mean, I don't even know when we're gonna open up, and have no consequences and markets endlessly at all-time highs. The optimism is excessive, which you could see through Bitcoin prices, for example, which are probably at 30,000 right now. I mean, I can't check it often enough. It goes up so fast. And
or 29,400.
right. Okay. I'm sure by the end of our conversation, it could easily be 30. And by the first, it could be 35,000.
That reminds me of the situation in Zimbabwe, and which had the best performing stock market during their
Right.
period of inflation. And two men were having coffee and for lunch, and the chef came and 2 million zloty for 1 cup of coffee, and they couldn't
Right.
believe it. And then
Well, I lived
then he
through
ordered
this.
another cup of coffee at after lunch, and it was 3 million. It's gone up by 50% during
Well,
the.
I lived through this when the currency was deflating after the Soviet Union fell apart. All of the rubles with constant devaluation by 100, then another time by 100. So whatever savings people had, and myself, my mother included, all were lost. It's, it's
Well,
happened many times.
how did you come back? What was the story of your rise to greatness and riches?
I don't think I'm quite there yet in either greatness or riches. I mean, I don't consider myself rich. I consider myself comfortable, but it's just basically hard work and never giving up and try to just work hard and keep moving forward. Learn from your mistakes. There's like everybody wants to find a secret. There is no secret, really. Everybody's path is unique and
Is there a secret to the stock market? Is there a secret that our listeners should follow so that they'll
oh,
always?
yes, you already told them that secret to the stock market. Buy and hold, right? That's it. But the only problem with this, you need to have money to buy with, right? And so that's the conundrum. People who have money, they buy and hold, but people like working class, they don't have enough money to buy and hold to make a difference. Because especially young people, I feel like they're impatient. If I'm 20 or 30, do I care if I buy and hold right now? And then in 30 years, I may be a millionaire. I don't want to, I'm not even sure if I'm going to live so long, that kind of stuff. People want to buy now and have 10% later in a week.
Why do
That's why they buy options.
why do people in Russia have such a low life expectancy, like 15 years less than in the US?
Um, I would say drinking is a big part of it for sure. And the medical system is not really taking care of people older. There is no insulin as much widespread. Like insulin extends life a lot for diabetics, right? In Russia, you're not really tested as much for that. So that's one of the things. Various heart surgeries are not performed, and just poor diet in general.
Do you feel that there was some amazing great accomplishments that occurred under the Trump administration. One of them was uh, the rollout and the perfection of the vaccine in a few months with their reduction of regulation from the FDA.
Right.
And certainly the Mideast cooling off, and that's been a tremendous accomplishment. And the indication that the knowledge now that all the media are biased against capitalism. Do you feel the cancel culture will continue in 2021?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to continue unabated because nobody's trying to stop it. The Republican Party just also goes on with it. I mean, we're demolishing monuments. You start with Lee, and then you move on to Jefferson, Lincoln. There is nobody's even trying to stop any of this. So why would they stop? Even McConnell's daughter itself, ironically, uh, she's such a liberal that she tweeted the other day that even with Biden president, we should still continue fighting the power, go into the streets. I'm paraphrasing a bit because I don't remember exactly, but we should continue fighting the patriarchy, the power, because they're not just going to give up, they're going to adapt. So we need to fight them until it's completely demolished. So Biden doesn't solve the problem of the left. They feel like the patriarchy is bringing them down, and it's a man's world, it's a white man's world, so they're not going to give up until ever, because they don't really have an end goal besides chaos, unfortunately.
Well, there's a lot of thinkers who believe that the French Revolution is the best model for what we're going through now. And they had their own cancel culture, of course. So far, the progressives have only resorted to firing and shaming those who disagree. There has been not very much guillotining, although in New York there was a typical event. A BMW was
Right.
placidly driving through the
Right. The street that was blocked by the bikers.
23rd Street
Right.
and 3rd Avenue, and some bikers decided to get a free ride by holding onto the handlebars of the car, and then when one of them fell, they tried to destroy the car itself.
Right.
They broke the window. So I mean, we obviously would have seen a lot more of that if there hadn't been a word for the progressives to hold their fire until Biden got elected. And they must be very frustrated now that Biden has become rather, he's concentrated on identity politics rather than progressive things. He's happy if, he has 90% non-white in his cabinet, his chief advisors, but he hasn't said anything recently about the environment, the climate deal, and going back to the Iran deal. But we can expect that to happen. I think when it does happen, probably sometime in general, when the market, strangely, when the market's up a lot in December, the market has a very high expectation until the end of February. Usually by the last few days in February, the party is over. And I expect that to happen again this year, so that have your parties in the first months, the first part of the year, and then watch out for the whirlwind to occur.
Right.
Well, do you have anything else charismatic to say, Ms. Charismatic?
Thank you. You're too kind. Well, I think we should keep it short today, and we'll save more bad news for the next year, because it's New Year's Eve after all. So let's again wish our viewers happy New Year's Eve, and let's hope the next year is gonna be better than this one, because I know that lots of people are suffering with the whole COVID thing. So hopefully next year the vaccine will put their minds at ease, and we could continue. And
well, those who have bought the stock market are doing very well, and if they do it on leverage, they can expect not only to make 60,000 fold a century, but they'll make 120,000 a century if they leverage twice. But in general, the market is during periods of upness, when it's risen, the expectation the next day, the next week has been higher than when it's gone down. But in general, the idea of buying during panics and putting your money in after a panic, I think, has been shown. Since the middle of March, the market's gone up 75%.
Right.
Well, since that time, every day it's been good to buy the dips, and what's been really helpful this year are all the stimulus deals. The market has gone up about 50% whenever there's been talk of a stimulus deal coming to the fore again. So, and still there's another stimulus deal that's coming. The market will have to fall. I expect the market to open in the European hours to open down. It usually does after a move like this, and then it will go up the first day, and probably at that time we'll get another 50%. We'll get a big boost from the $2,000 a person being legislated, and the R's eventually falling into line with that. All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's. And before we go, just one last optimistic thing, maybe people would feel better about it. There was a study that happened in Wuhan, China recently, where they studied 10 million people and found that asymptomatic spread of COVID did not occur at all. So people who have no symptoms do not spread COVID. So there's no need to lockdowns. There was no need to lockdown because it doesn't make any sense. And they looked at 10 million people, and 300 asymptomatic cases were found. They traced all of their contacts and found out that not a single case of COVID was detected in any of the people who the asymptomatic people had contact with. So there is no such thing as asymptomatic transmission.
So
So
people should enjoy Christmas with their family.
Right. People should enjoy Christmas and New Year's with their family. If you don't have symptoms, if you're not sick, if you're normal, just go out, have fun, party, and have a happy and a healthy New Year's.
And buy and hold, right?
Buy and hold.
Okay.
Just not today.
Okay.
The market is closed and I'm short. So I'm hoping
You're
that,
short?
yes, I am a little bit. I'm a pessimist at heart. So, I think that it's only just for a trade. It's not really a serious thing. For a trade, I think we may open up a little lower. If not, then not. But
I agree with you. Okay, good luck. Happy New Year.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.